everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about how do you say this in English? I don't know. That was embarrassing. Have you ever been in a situation like this? Probably yes, and probably multiple times. That's why today we're discussing how to actually prevent mind blocks in your conversations in English with some real and practical tips that will help you every single time. Let's go. There's one ultimate secret for having successful conversations in English without getting stuck, and not many people know it. Now, before I tell you the secret, do me a favor and subscribe to my channel so that I continue making these videos and give you free lessons. Now, what is the secret to avoid getting stuck in your communication in English or to effectively continue speaking after you get stuck? The secret is called active listening. I know it sounds confusing, but let me clarify. Once I started working with many students and give both private and group coaching, I noticed a pattern in almost every student. Whenever we would work on the part about this fear of getting stuck in English and how do you actually get unstuck, I would give my students a practical exercise where I would provide a topic and ask them to converse between each other until someone gets stuck. Then what we would do is we stop and we discuss what was the reason for this. They would come up with all of these reasons, such as fear, or not knowing the word, or not having access to the right word. But as it turns out, the problem is much, much deeper than this. The problem is they would usually not listen to the other person, but simply wait for their turn to speak, meanwhile concentrating on their fear and their anxiety before speaking. So when all of this is summed up, once their turn for speaking comes, they start and they never finish. Sounds familiar? I bet many of you can agree that whenever you speak to someone in English, you are more focused on yourself and getting your words out than on the other person and what they have to say. And this is why you are bad at small talk, you are bad at making lasting impressions in your communication, and most of the times you easily let the conversation dry up after getting stuck. Okay, so how can active listening help you to improve your conversations? Now, when I say active listening, what I mean is to simply forget about yourself for a second and fully engage in whatever the other person has to say. Listen to their tone of voice, listen to their message, and try to understand what they are trying to tell you. So to give you a practical example, I will tell you a personal experience. A few days ago, I attended an entrepreneurship event where everybody was from different countries across Europe, and we were all supposed to converse in English. So this was a typical networking event. So I met one person, and once she started introducing herself, I immediately turned into active listening mode. Here, what most people would do is immediately start thinking of the things they want to say for themselves, their self-introduction, and that is simply wrong. So I listened carefully, and instead of immediately speak about myself to show appreciation and to keep the conversation engaging, I asked questions. I asked something like, "Oh wow, your experience sounds admiring, and the part about research stuck with me. Could you tell me more details about it?" So even if you don't know a lot of English, even if you are scared of getting stuck, by actively listening, you can come up with a question and let the other person do most of the speaking. Or you can simply show them that you care and listen by asking some additional questions. And then I got so engaged in the conversation that once I started introducing myself, the conversation was already flowing, and the other person asked more questions whenever I stopped speaking, so there was no way I could get stuck. So, long story short, you get stuck because you don't actively listen and you only think about your turn. This automatically creates pressure and even more anxiety. And when you start speaking, you get a few words out, and then at some point you get stuck and don't know how to continue. Because you were not listening, you don't have anything to say now in order to connect to the other person, and you simply can't think of any questions for the other person to get the conversation going. So in the end, this looks like a disaster. Now, I encourage you to try this in your next conversation in English. There is nothing you should practice at home. Your practice should be in real life. So whenever someone comes up and you need to speak to them in English, remember, listen carefully. If you don't have anything to say, ask a question or give a compliment and then ask something specific about what they just told you. You'll see that just by doing this, your communication skills will improve. But more importantly, you will avoid getting stuck. Once you are more engaged in the conversation, words will flow more easily, I promise you. Don't simply wait for your turn to speak. Start listening and start asking questions. What do you guys think about this? I'd love to know if this video resonated with you. So make sure you start a conversation in the comments and let's see how it goes. If you found this video valuable, I recommend you to watch this one where I show you exactly what you should do in order to start falling in love with your English practice and always be motivated. Finally, if you've stayed until the end and still haven't subscribed to my channel, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like to support me. Until the next video, don't forget to stay zen, and I'll see you next week. Bye!